How much coffee retention does the Smart Grinder Pro produce? Episode number 2 of this series. If you haven't yet, check episode number 1 if you want to find out how to do a deep cleaning on the Smart Grinder Pro. But today, it's all about coffee retention. So we're going to grind 4 cups of 20 grams of coffee and find out how much coffee retention do we get after the first cup, second cup, third and fourth cup. We're also going to remove the burrs and the impeller straight after the first cup of coffee to understand 2 things: how much coffee retention do I get once I've done a deep cleaning after the first cup of coffee, and by removing the burrs and impeller, we're going to find out where the buildup of coffee is located. This is the last episode on the Smart Grinder Pro before we move on and do the same exercise with the Eureka Specialita and the Niche Zero. Hi, my name is François from The French Review. Before we dive in, make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell and leave a comment so you don't miss anything. It also helps me to create more content for you and support this channel. Quick question. After the first cup of coffee, how much coffee retention do you think we're gonna have? 2.4, 3.4 or 4.4 grams of coffee? Right, let's dive into it. As you can see, I've done a deep cleaning on the top burr, bottom burr and the impeller. So now we're going to grind the first cup of 20 grams of coffee and find out how much coffee retention and where the buildup of coffee is. So we're starting with the first cup of coffee. We're going to put 20 grams of coffee in and see how much of coffee we're gonna get out. It took around 15 to 20 seconds to grind the 20 grams of coffee. Then I weighted the first cup of coffee and I have to say I was impressed by the results. Then I decided to remove the burrs and the impeller to find out where the coffee is located. But before we find out how much coffee retention we have after the first cup and remove the burrs and the impeller, let's do the same exercise with cup number 2, 3 and 4. Cup number 2, 20 grams. It took around the same time, 50 to 20 seconds. And when I weighted the cup, we had 18.7 grams of coffee, which means we had 1.3 grams of coffee retention. Did the same thing with the third cup. 20 grams of coffee in, took roughly around the same times. And when I weighted the third cup of coffee, we had 19.7 grams of coffee, which gives us 0.3 grams of coffee retention. Now we're going to do the same things with the fourth cup of coffee. Before we find out how much coffee retention we had with the first cup of coffee and remove the burrs and the impeller. Fourth cup of coffee, 20 grams of coffee in, took around the same times, 15 to 20 seconds, and weighted 19.7 grams of coffee, which gave us the same result as the previous cup, 0.3 grams of coffee retention. And now we're going to find out how much coffee retention we had after the first cup of coffee and where the buildup of coffee was located through the burrs and impeller. And to give you an idea, we're going to remove the burrs and impeller. We're going to remove the hopper, the top burr, the bottom burr and the impeller. While removing the burrs and the impeller, we can clearly see some coffee grinds all around the edge where the hopper fits in, as well as on the top burr and the bottom burr, which is kind of expected anyway. But what I want to find out is how much coffee buildup do we have around the impeller and underneath the impeller. We now have removed the impeller and you can see the coffee grinds all around the impeller, underneath the impeller and at the bottom of the grinder. And this is all after the first cup of coffee. So now the question is, how much coffee grinds do we have in the grinder after the first cup? When I weighted the first cup of coffee, we had 16.6 grams of coffee, which means the coffee retention of this grinder, once we've done a deep cleaning after the first cup of coffee, is 3.4 grams of coffee. This is a lot. When you think about the second cup, 1.3 grams of coffee retention, the third and the fourth cup were at 0.3 grams of coffee. And this made me realize a few things. The first one, this coffee grinder has a very high coffee retention. The second one, I will always have some coffee grinds from my previous cup into my new cup. And the reason why? There is a coffee buildup in the grinder, which explains why we had 3.4 grams of coffee in the first cup and 0.3 in the last cup. And the last things, I used to do a deep cleaning on this grinder once a month, but after 2 days experience, I'm going to probably do a deep cleaning once a month and every time I change of coffee beans. I hope this video was helpful. If you've got any questions or comments, leave them down below and I'll come back to you. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell. Thank you.